If you had to travel across the US on one penny and make a video every day, what would you do?
Hey y'all, can anyone sell me a pen for this penny?
Ryan Trahan began his penny series in June 2022, and his goal was simple.
I only have 30 days to deliver Mr. Beast this penny, but... Thank you!
And the results were staggering. The content worked because Ryan unearthed a storytelling formula from film and TV, and he brought it to YouTube.
I conducted a Harmon Circle with the penny series. You want something. I wanted YouTube to feel alive.
But the true secret to Ryan is his comedy and how he gets laughs through editing.
If there's 8 frames of silence, this could be the difference between getting someone to laugh or not. Understanding how awkward that is.
And behind those awkward cuts is the man who edited the penny series from the back of a van, Zach Levitt. He faced the challenge of editing 30 pieces of content in 30 days.
The audiences are really smart. Allowing the story to tell you the message instead of telling the viewer the message is sometimes really valuable.
But they were able to complete this because of a simple change in attitude.
The more that we've been able to pour into the videos creatively to give a gift to people, the more views that we're seeing.
First of all, I think we need to mention the accolades, the results of the penny series. And so you traveled across the US on one penny, but right at the end, you raised $1.4 million, which equaled 14 million meals for charity. You got 54 million unique views, 2.6 million new subscribers in 30 days, and 7.5 million average views per video. I don't know why I'm telling you this. You know this, but I'm telling the audience is this. But I appreciate your reactions.
We don't even fully know. I feel like we haven't really taken a look at the data that much. That's insane. It really is like the craziest experience of our lives. We've like been processing it for the past 2 months.
14 million meals, bro. That is crazy.
Truly, the goal was $100,000 raised, and we were like, how's that going to happen? We had no idea how that was going to happen, and it did.
And then Dr. Mike donated $100,000 on the spot.
It's Dr. Mike.
What this really meant, though, is that in a YouTube sphere where creators spend a vast majority of time developing their videos, spending a couple weeks or even a couple months, and it's like this highly big spectacle content, and people like those breaks in between those videos. Whereas you went, nah, I want to change that. And then you posted for 30 days straight. To an extent, you kind of did a bit of a live stream, if I'm honest. There was a consistent posting every single day. You were daily vlogging in a YouTube atmosphere or a YouTube sphere meta that didn't demand that.
Yeah, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because like when people talk about it as a live stream and the idea of the live stream, it's so weird to think about because for us, it was just like our daily lives. But then people talk about it as if it was this alive beast. And we're always just like so startled in some way. It's like, it's so interesting. It's like, wow, it really was, I guess so.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely felt like it was alive. That was the goal of the whole series because I even felt the videos we were making felt like it just kind of feels like we're going through the motions, even though we were pouring so much into it. It's like, why does it still not feel like the platform is alive? So that was the goal. And it's so crazy to see that a lot of people said, like, I wake up to this and this is my life now. Like, YouTube is awesome. It's so crazy.
That's so dope. It's so cool how you were able to become part of the routine of people's daily lives. How did you get the idea originally for the penny series?
So we kind of looked at the beginning of this year, like we want to make some amazing videos and we were so stoked to like really focus on storytelling. And I feel like we did a great job of that. Like we poured so much into those first like 6 videos of the year, but we were posting twice a month and we were like, kind of feels like boring, you know, even though we were working really hard, it's like, we could be doing something that feels more exciting. Yeah. And so we thought of the penny series like a long time ago, the 30-day one, daily vlog. But we were like, no, we can't do that. But then we would notice when we were I was filming a video and me and Zach just started chatting like off camera. And I was like, okay, but think about it. And
we were like in the darkest room and we were like, what would be like a good next video? Like what would be really fun? And then we just started chatting about the penny series and we were like, wait, should we do this? And the more we thought about it over the next like 2 hours, we were like, wait, we just have to do this. Like this is just what has to happen. And I was so afraid from my perspective as an editor because I was like, dang, it usually takes us like 7 days to make a video. Like I'm in the studio for like so long editing. And then it was like the idea of making one every day. I was like kind of internally like demoralized. I was like, dang, is this even possible? But it sounds so amazing to do that I was like, we just have to do this. Like it just has to happen.
I was really worried for you guys because of course with my experience with Logan Paul, we did daily vlogging for over a year. And then of course you guys were doing it for 30 days. And I say this a lot. I wouldn't wish that type of daily grind on my worst enemy. When you pitched to me that you were going to be doing this series, I was like, uh-oh, you two are gonna hate each other at the end of this. But it looks like you guys actually end up loving each other just a little bit more at the end.
Now we're just cuddling in the chair.
Zach, I also do want to acknowledge it for you being the editor for that. And then let's just say from the first day in comparison to where you were on the last day, what was that mental creative change that you have?
It was kind of like a 3-parter for me. In the beginning, I was kind of scared because I believed that I could do it, but I didn't really know because, you know, we had been producing at such a slow rate in comparison.
Yeah.
And so when I started doing it the first day, I was like, dang, this is actually a little bit more than I had bargained for almost, because like we started to fall behind pace. We had a big buffer. And in the first 4 days, we lost like 2 days of the buffer, which was pretty worrisome. And we had a conversation in Las Vegas where we were like, is this even going to be possible? Like Ryan was so scared.
I was so scared, dude. I was like, dude, Zach, I don't know. Because the thing is, I wasn't involved on the day-to-day of the editing.
Yeah.
Like the actual timeline coming together. I was like, at this rate, this is not going to happen. And I was like, are we going to take breaks on the weekends? Like, how are we going to fix this? But Preston and Zach were like, we have to do this. There's no other option. And Zach was like, we're fine. So I trusted them. They did it.
Yeah, it was like 1 a.m. in a Las Vegas hotel. And we were just having this meeting where we're like, is this physically possible? And the whole time, I was actually pretty confident because I had picked up my flow after losing 2 days. And I was like, okay, we have a 2-day buffer. Like, we just have to get it done at this point. And we like created an order of operations and we're like, do we need captions? Do we need blah, blah, blah? Do we need like all these small things? And then we just realized, let's just make the core video and see how it works. And then we started doing that and it worked so well. And we were like, well, that's great.
That's interesting. It kind of seems to be, you're doing the captions, you're doing all of these effects, you're doing all these fun things, to an extent maybe doing what we would call the retention editing, like trying to ensure that people were engaged in it. But I think it got to a point where it's like, you chose to abandon that a little bit and just mostly focus on make sure the story or the fundamental content is there.
Definitely.
100%.
Yeah, we actually saw our attention go up when we took out captions, like
Wow.
for the following videos. I don't know if that was a coincidence or what, but it was like, okay, we're good. We don't have to do that.
My interpretation of that would be, I would say for the first couple of episodes, you probably did have to do like the high retention post-production strategies. But I would say once people were engaged in the story, you didn't need to do it as much.
Yeah, I feel like at some point it shifted from trying to make people watch the videos via retention baiting, the money making, and other aspects like that. Like we really thought that making the money was what made people watch the videos. But then in Las Vegas, when we were heading to Colorado, we had a video where we made almost no money. I think we lost money only.
Yeah, we didn't make a single penny the entire day. We just spent money, and I just like had a good time, and the retention was crazy.
Yeah, like that video did one of the best of the time period. And we were like, wow, this is like a really big realization that the people are coming back to watch because they really like the storyline. Like they want to be there with Ryan every day. And it's not all about retention baiting people in.
That's so freeing. That is so freeing that you can just remove that. And you can honestly look at the 30 days as a giant story arc instead of every single video being like, okay, the intro has to be, you have a minute, you have to hook everybody in, you have to keep them for the rest of the video. But like you said, the first couple episodes were that hook, and then once they're in, they're in. Like they literally don't care what you're doing for the entire video.
You essentially made a 30-minute hook, and then that was it. We were in, and then we were a lot more comfortable watching the whole video.
Yeah.
That's a sick perspective. It really did feel like that. Like I kept, people had way higher expectations for the series than I did. Like even our friends, they're like, "Oh, it's gonna do so well," and I was like, "Guys, just calm down." Like I don't know. I would have been stoked if we even averaged like 1 million views per video. That would have been such a win. That would have been our biggest month ever, I think. And so I was super excited about that. But that's what I kept telling Preston and Zach is like, let's look at this as like one overall holistic project. Don't get caught up in the average views of each video. And it's so crazy how it like turned out. But yeah, I definitely love the idea of just like that episode 1 was the hook. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like in a lot of ways, I still view it as like a 30-day piece as well. Like we still talk about like the first video and the last video being bookends because like the center is like the meat of it. But in some ways it is kind of just like the intro and then the conclusion and then there's 28 videos in between.
Yeah.
Whereas most content tries to get you in on the intro and then try to get to the outro as quickly as possible. And so the video is condensed and as tight as possible. You had to do that over the course of 30 days. But I think organically what that meant is instead of trying to focus on how to get us to the end as quickly as possible, I think you change your perspective and focusing on the journey in itself. How could you ensure that that day had the most interesting things for being on that recording? Were there even days when, let's just say halfway through the day, when have we not recorded enough content?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like the experience of filming was unreal because the moment I woke up, I am recording myself. Every meal that I ate over the 30 days was recorded. I just recorded nonstop all day. And I think I got better and better at knowing like what was going to be in the final video. Yeah. And so I don't think because we prepared thumbnails beforehand that allowed me to like know what the task was going to be for the day. Like as we were exporting the video going up, we were always like, okay, tomorrow we'll do this. And it was so crazy because the only way we could survive was day to day. Like we literally couldn't get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you remember the post-it strategy you tried to make? You tried to make like a post-it strategy of like how we were going to work out 10 days in the future. And then at the end, basically you're just like, never mind.
We were like charting it all out, and then it just made no sense. It made as much sense as when we started, and we were just like, that's just not worth figuring out.
You were recording on your phone a lot, Ryan. So what was it like when you were done for the day? You had to transfer the footage, and like, what was the whole workflow like?
Zach and Preston, they followed me around the entire time with a van. So like they were going to each city. Like if I had a flight to Denver, they would be driving from Vegas to Denver just to get there in time.
Oh, wow.
And basically every night, like Zach was editing in this van, dude. Zach is a trooper. Like I just know that on the trip from Vegas to Denver, he's like bouncing around. He's like trying to do this cut. And I can imagine there were some crazy tough times. And it's crazy. Like we'd basically just airdrop to Zach's MacBook and dump to Zach's MacBook, and he just went crazy with it. And then we uploaded from there with a hotspot.
Zach, of course, you're working with Ryan. A part of it was probably the review process. And so you edited the video, you had to give it to Ryan. When and where and how was that moment when, Ryan, did you potentially have to stop your day and ensure that the video was good to go?
That was fun, dude. It was always like, at the end of the day, I would always either be in my hammock or like about to record the outro of my hammock. So it was always at the end of the day. That was kind of like our buffer. Like it needs to be done now so that we can upload the video. And so that review process was always just like, watch through. Like as the videos went on, dude, they were basically like no need to be touched. But beforehand, Zach really, really motivated me through like was it the blue light glasses? Yeah. You should tell him that story because I think the Penny series, I feel so much more emotionally attached to the Penny series because of this. I think it's really cool insight for creators in general.
Hit me.
Yeah, I was going to get blue light glasses before the Penny series because I realized my eyes were going to get demolished. And I go into the glasses store, and it's like this old man that starts like talking to me and like getting me my glasses. And I'm asking him all these questions, and he seems so wise. And I just started talking about business with him because I was like, how long have you had this store? He's like, I've been running the store for like 47 years, yada, yada, yada. I've been in the glasses industry. And I was like, how much of a role do you play in like shipping out these glasses, I guess? Like at this point, like you're still working at the store for some reason. And he looked pretty well off. And basically he said, every pair of glasses that comes out of the store, whether it's online or in person, I touch. Because although I trust my people to the fullest, I want to make sure it's to my standard. And so him putting his own impression on every single pair, and he was like, this is one of the most important things I've done in my business throughout the entire thing, because I can always ensure it's as good as I would want it to be. And so it's really beautiful. And I told Ryan this, and he was super motivated to touch the videos because initially Ryan was just going to like let me run it, and then we are just going to post.
Yeah.
But then...
Zach motivated me to do that. So basically, like, I would spend like an hour after filming, just like touching the videos. And it's really crazy because it doesn't change that much, but it could change like 2.5% to just feel like more like, I don't know, like my vision creatively. And it might even be things that just are instinctual that you can't teach. And so it's really cool though, because throughout the series, like I feel like whatever that hour dwindled down to like 10 minutes in terms of like whatever I could add. And it's so cool just like being able to edit with Zach, because it feels like just the creative vision that we've developed together. It's like getting so synced, and it's like really fun to create with someone else. That's what I've realized for sure.
Just going back, I want to know how you guys met.
When I was starting YouTube back in the day, Ryan actually did running YouTube videos, and I was starting like a running YouTube channel, and I didn't really even know too much about Ryan at the time. And then I like stumbled across some of his videos, you know, got some inspiration for some bangers back in the day.
Yeah.
But at some point I reached like a crux where I was like, dang, I need some advice. And so I reached out to Ryan, and we started DMing when I was like back in college, and Ryan had just dropped out. And so he was giving me this like beautiful YouTube advice. Like back in the day, he was talking about like, I can't pass Cody Cohen subscribers if I'm trying to be Cody Ko, like small things like that, and like appealing to 8-year-olds and 8-year-olds, like the most fundamental advice, like, and just giving me this like great advice. And just over time, like every now and then we would message, but then
that's fun.
the story kind of connected with Ryan making this series called Odd One Out, and I randomly applied to it and made it on the show, and then.
Yeah, we just met during this like series I was filming, which ironically I took it down because it was so like, what is this? But I just put it back up. So if you guys want to watch the series, it's like very overly produced. It was right before I did a Penny series last summer, so it was a necessary evil that had to happen in my creative journey to make the Penny series again. But yeah, it's crazy because like off camera we were just chatting, and I feel like we just clicked so well. Yeah. Just like this dude has the most insane philosophical takes that are just like so beautiful. He's just like literally a stoic of YouTube, and it's just really fun to be around. And so we just like always talked about that. And eventually, like I needed help. I was just like creating on my own after that for a while. And I was like, Zach, I know you don't like, you're not a specialized editor, but the way you think and the way you work your butt off is like, I'd love to work with you and we'll figure it out. And so he's now like the most insane editor I know. But like at the time, he just had these like these aspects of his character that like I was so excited to work with. And so now he's just like growing into it. I feel so privileged to be able to make videos with Zach. It's such a fun time.
Zach, how were you able to learn and understand Ryan's creative style and then start implementing it yourself?
Well, when we started working together, I was not like a YouTube editor or anything. I was no Hayden Hillier-Smith, you know. And so I was just a YouTuber, and Ryan needed somebody, and I happened to fill the role. And so initially I just took a lot of time to learn. Like after every edit I would do, I would just love to get roasted. Like Ryan wouldn't roast because Ryan's such a kind guy, but he would help me. Like he would teach me the small things. Like I would realize that there's nuances in the difference between what he finalized and what I made. And so kind of trying to resolve these differences and learn the small like nuances that Ryan implements. And so it was a lot of studying for me, especially like once I saw the final product versus my version, I would look at it and realize what were the minute differences and try to like learn as many of those and memorize as many ways to like implement those, because it's a lot of like fine detail with our style. And so over time of learning it, it finally just became our style together. So it was just a lot of study until it just became unified.
What is a fine detail on a Ryan Trahan edit?
I think that the things that make us unique as creators are the things that most people just overlook. Like I am so particular about font choices. I'm so particular about like timing cuts. Like there's a you're like trying to communicate to the audience who you are at all times. And so like leaving an extra half second of awkward silence that really happened. I'm gonna deliver you a penny in like a month, hopefully, okay?
A what?
It's worse than I thought. Hang tight, Mr. Beast. I'm on my way.
I thought they were...
Could be the difference between them understanding like how awkward that is and how like you're just a normal human versus you being some actor who's like creating this content for money, you know? And so I'm like so particular. I think that those like small details, like we focus so much more on that than like high level storytelling or like all these other things. So it's really just about communicating to the audience who I am.
I love that. I love that.
Even for the Penny series, like when I brought Ryan a test edit, because we did one test edit before, I would leave like micro gaps in between frames or like different scenes. And this is like a really minute thing. But Ryan emphasized that like basically removing these micro gaps was what helped the pacing of the original Penny series feel so good.
Yeah.
And like I really took that to heart, and every day I would like make sure to like close up all the gaps, because it really did create such a different feeling in the video, even though it's something that like when you're editing you might overlook, like, oh, this is just like a 3-frame gap that just is like a little bit blank, but it brings so much more energy and momentum to that shot.
I like to say the micro gaps of silence are sometimes the loudest cuts.
Ooh.
Because that slowing down of that pacing.
Hayden, man, when you drop in the book.
I'm working on it, but yeah.
Dude, it's so good. He always has these one-liners. I agree, though. We realized like that 8-frame. Basically, like what it is whenever you look at the timeline, there's like two clips. This could be the difference between getting someone to laugh or not. Is like if there's 8 frames of silence versus back to back. There's just something comedic about like the way to cut. It's so important, and like a lot of people just, oh yeah, if I cut together a video, it'll make sense. But there's so many small details that go a long way for sure.
You were to be hiring an editor and are brought on to work to you. What would you tell that editor to expect or to learn to start understanding your editing style?
I think you have to create rules as a creator of like what your style is, and you even wrote this down in your notes.
Yeah.
But just like, for example, like exactly what you're going to tell our friend's editor is like creating. You can literally read this. I mean, this dude is like a philosopher of YouTube.
No, one of our friends was having some like editing problems, and so I was like basically figuring out what would be valuable to like instill. And one of the biggest things was like I initially wrote out tidbits, and that was like branding and editing, and so like basically conveying like your brand being typography, music constraints, high level edit styling, determining these things will help take out the guesswork in editing. Because like I think for our style, like even one small tip is like sometimes when we freeze frame, we'll like add like a vignette around an object, and like just learning like, oh, that needs to be at like 45%, and like this circle needs to be this way, and like they're really small, but if you outline that in like a Google Doc, it'll help you help the editor so much. And like generally Ryan was like synth music was like our thing, and so like that was kind of what we were like searching within, and these constraints including typography helped me initially have an idea, and then it was like smaller things I would learn, but like also building a sound library is very valuable. But then editing hierarchy, like what's valuable to Ryan, like Ryan said, no After Effects, so that's immediately cut out of like what's valuable. And then some other things, just like general format things in terms of like intro and the way that you tell a story. Because like our storytelling method is way different than a lot of people's.
There's a lot that goes into the video. I'm realizing it as you're like going down this, but even there's like rules within the intro that we want to do of like, how do we do intros? It's like exposition, icebreaker, like something about us that's funny, you know? And it's crazy because like each segment has so many things, and that's why it's hard. You can't just like say, hey, edit this.
Right.
It's just not, that's not the way it works, you know? And what do you mean by edit? Like even the word edit has so many potential meanings, like revise, fix it. Was there a problem? Or like expose something that wasn't there? Like that's why we work so closely, and it's so fun because we know what the goal is of the video. Because we've talked about it beforehand. I told them about my experience, and like even in post, like here's what we're gonna tell. So it's really fun just being that collaborative, and it's not that simple.
In some ways, it's valuable that we like live so close to each other and get to spend so much time together, because that's also allowed the creative vision to develop. Because like we'll watch videos together or like talk about videos, and like that's helps inform like how we think about videos. And so just like forming like a one consciousness
Hive mind.
just like has been so valuable, because like I've learned so many small things just by watching Ryan film or watching Ryan like slightly edit a clip, and just sitting and watching him do it was like so valuable.
Since you guys live so close together, and even just the story of how you guys met each other, you were literally just friends first. And I think there's so many editors that are listening, trying to figure out, okay, how do I freaking get an editing job? How do I work with the creator? How do I, just get my foot in the door in the industry? And I think just becoming friends with people, that's what I tell everybody. Just be friends. Be friends with somebody whose work you admire. Ask for advice. Like literally what you did, Zach. Asking Ryan for advice on your own videos. That is the best way to get your foot in the door, honestly. And just because the way that you were able to say, hey, I'm not an expert, but Ryan, you are an expert, it really gives Ryan incentive to be like, oh, that's nice. Thank you for saying that about me. I feel good now. And then you're able to give advice, and so it's a win-win. And you obviously have like a super amazing friendship now.
I don't feel like I'm running a business here. Like I really don't. I just feel like we're just making videos together that people get to enjoy. And it's so simple, but it is also financial, I guess. It like makes money somehow. It's like,
so wholesome.
It's so crazy. So it's a blessing for sure.
Especially in your old videos, you relied so much on voiceover to not only create jokes, but also just, say exactly what happened. Be like, this really stupid thing happened, and, it's funny. So in this, you didn't really have the opportunity to go and post and create voiceover. So you were trying to figure out, okay, how do we also create jokes and make it just as funny, or just as, familiar and authentic without going in post and recording your voice?
That was a huge decision we had to make because we relied on it so heavily in the videos, sort of like leading up to the Penny series. And I realized that it's almost like we just wanted to make the editing process as smooth as possible. So we had to make rules. And one of the rules is I can't like record voiceovers at 11 p.m. when I'm exhausted, like after filming all day, and I have to wake up early anyway. Like there's just no way that that's going to be advantageous. And what we realized is like it's actually a lot easier to make a video if you don't have to depend on this like additional storyline. And that actually, it feels like it made me a better storyteller in the moment, like knowing what to capture, so that realizing this story's unfolding, I have to make sure it makes sense the entire time. And I feel like, what did it feel like in post, like not having to fill those gaps?
It was kind of nice because I could just tell the whole story, because before it would be like I would type in a voiceover and then try to build a story based off this idea of a voiceover that would go here and just filling in what I thought would fit best. But then when I just had the ability to type in like our fake voiceovers, which were when we just put text on screen with them 50% opacity.
That was the voiceover.
That was the voiceover.
The text on screen became the voice. Like it's all about exposition.
Yeah.
And so the text on screen with 50% opacity became that.
Yeah.
And it was way more efficient. And I enjoyed it. That was good.
And the hit drum. And the hit drum was also critical for just like hard scene cuts. It's just so funny. It's like nothing was recorded. Hit drum to next scene. It's just so funny.
I hope you have a great life. I'll drop you off. Thanks so much. Have a good one. See ya. Okay, so I was riding my bike and Branson here saw the Buc-ee's bag.
I'm definitely interested in like when you were filming on the day, because I think a lot of creators, we do use voiceovers as that crutch. Like if we didn't happen to capture the story, we can fix it in post, literally. How did you start to change on how you were thinking so you could record and capture, ensure that story was captured proactively?
So I essentially, like you said, we did a test vlog before, and I knew that at the end of the day, a good story is a format. If we're gonna post 30 of these things, we need to have a format, meaning like chapters, segments. And it's almost like it accidentally developed over time, but I kind of had an initial plan, like intro, talk about where we are, money-making method number 1, be sure to show like a little bit of a travel montage, money-making method number 2, be sure to show a little travel montage or eat dinner, and then outro. That was like my initial plan. But then as we started filming, I'm just like, I literally descended into madness throughout the series. Like I just started becoming more and more goofy. And it's so cool because a lot of the elements of the Penny series were developed on accident. Like the game plan, I think I thought of that in episode 4. And then it became this huge thing that I would start every video with because it was so like, oh, that's so good. I can like tell them the game plan, like what I'm doing. And even like having segments where I knew when I was going to talk about the charity aspect, potentially getting reset was always be at night because that's just much easier than trying to monitor it throughout the day. It's cool how it sort of built upon itself through real experiences. And I think whenever you like create rules, it's really helpful, but also being flexible along a process like this allowed for the video to just naturally become a better format on its own.
It seems like Ryan was able to capture the story on the day that you, to an extent, were able to just simply respond to him. You didn't have to build the story in the edit because the story was very organically captured on the day.
Exactly. And there's like natural attention in that as well, like with the money building and money's being spent and the Harmon Circle that we talk about sometimes.
Harmon Circle.
The damn Harmon Circle, one of the most important tools to learn storytelling. Yes, you did. Yeah, you started one way and then ended in the same place, having changed every single day.
Hammock to hammock.
Hammock to hammock, literally.
Hammock to hammock. For people who don't know, what's the Harmon Circle?
The easiest version is like a person or like a character starts in like a natural state. Like Ryan will start in his bedroom, okay? And then he goes on some quest and encounters some obstacle. And then he responds to that obstacle, whether like a win or a loss, and then he returns to his normal state, being a changed person. That's like the most simplified version.
Yeah.
That's it.
So
That's
good.
exactly it.
Small incremental changes, and let's just say sitcoms and TV shows follow that same philosophy. Small incremental changes, but they end up to an extent in the same place, having changed ever so slightly. And then you do that over the course of a season or over the course of an entire TV show, and then the character who they was at the beginning is now a completely different character who they were at the end. And it's done with small changes and small trials and tribulations, small obstacles that help challenge small aspects of their personality and then grow that way.
This Harmon Circle, I wouldn't even say we weren't even thinking about this on the day-to-day, but now that you guys are saying that, it's crazy how, in reality, in my own personal life, I conducted a Harmon Circle with the Penny series because, like, the goal, like, you want something. I wanted YouTube to feel alive. And so, like, this was a manifestation of that. And so I left my natural state of just being here, like, in Austin, went on an adventure, and then I came back, and now we're, like, talking about it. And it's so crazy how, like, this is kind of my takeaway with storytelling, is, like, life tells the story, and I feel like oftentimes on YouTube, like now we're trying to make the story like somehow portray life. And I feel like the videos, like there's a way to do storytelling poorly. And I feel like it's when you're not letting life just unfold and just trying to refine it. And I think the Penny series taught me a lot for like what we want to do next of like, let's just go have experiences and then we can tell the story in post. Let's not create the story before it's even unfolded. So
I have that discussion with creators, and I am pushing for some creators to try to have some sort of preconceived story a little bit. But you're also saying you can let the universe give you the story.
yeah, I mean, obviously the goal is to cross America. I mean, you have goals, but it's not like you're trying to create the experience. The whole point is for me to like not know what my experience is. And so if I were to somehow like, oh yeah, I'm gonna plant a guy here in Denver who's gonna help me figure, like, that's just not real life. Like, it's a skit at that point. And I feel like bad storytelling feels like a skit. It's like, what is happening here? Like, this is clearly not a real experience. And so I think that's, you can have goals, but I think that leaving it open-ended for your experience to be interpreted however it is and not faking emotions, not faking a conclusion, that's like the best way to go about it. And I think the audience responds well to that.
I think it really lends to the authenticity that lots of your videos have, is because the Harmon Circle emulates real life, like you were saying. Like that is what all of us humans can relate to, and because all of us have struggles, we have goals, and we are changed in small increments every single day, and that just is a universal thing that everybody can identify with and everybody can, you know, take away. And they're like, okay, look at somebody else going for it. Like it's so inspiring for anybody watching.
I love this because both of you have now challenged something that I'm pushing on creators a lot, because it's like having a story in mind as you film. So I love the fact you guys are challenging this. Because,
Let's go, baby.
No. This is great because it's the reason why for me I feel like some creators are struggling to find a story on the day. Or they are presented opportunities, but they don't identify that as a storytelling opportunity. This is happening, and let me put more focus on this. And so the reason why I think I am educating some creators to be a little bit proactive in the story before they begin filming is to start learning that organic discipline of, oh, here's a story path, let me go down this way.
Yeah.
And so by teaching them story prior, and then potentially, as I've seen here, abandoning that story because they went, oh wait, here's a better story, and off they go. It's helped training their mind a little bit to start thinking of what type of story could I capture.
Yep.
And so to having that in mind and then able to respond and abandon that story as they begin filming.
Yeah.
I think it just comes down to you have to learn storytelling. You have to learn the basics. You have to know what to look for. You have to say, okay, a story is a character pursuing a goal with obstacles in between. So how can I look at those obstacles and say, okay, I need to show all these obstacles because that's what everybody deals with on a daily basis. That's what gets people engaged. And so I think it comes down to educating yourself, learning, okay, this is what a story is. Now how can I go out and find it?
Here's an example. If I go out on an island and I just experience living on this island for 50 hours, I have no genuine emotional transformation. What would you do if you had it in post-production? Like, would you try to create this idea that, I totally transformed emotionally? Or would you just let the experience be entertaining at surface value? Because I feel like this is the big problem that creators are facing, is they think they have to force a transformation that didn't happen. And to me, I feel like I watched that and it just feels like I would have rather you just told me what happened, even if it didn't transform you. Because then that in itself is a realization. Like, oh wow, I expected to change from this, but I didn't, which teaches me this about myself.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that challenge as well. And I think forced change, well, I call it bullshit storytelling. And I think a lot of audiences do know and very clearly can tell that was a bullshit change.
Yep.
And so, and I think that is a really, really interesting question that I don't think we particularly know the answer. Is this referencing to when you also went to that Iceland island and nothing changed, but you just enjoyed the experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that video is my favorite one we've ever made, like The World's Loneliest House. And I wasn't really too worried about storytelling at that point, but I just literally vlogged it. I didn't even have a plan of like what I was going to film. I just recorded a bunch and then I got in post and it was a cool experience. And I think that like, that's all it was. And I think it was great. But I think that now if I sort of had the headspace of like, oh, I have to overly focus on storytelling, I would have been like, there's something about being lonely that can really show you a lot. Like just these cheesy endings. Like it just feels like you have to force a cheesy ending. And I think that's like the version, for example, optimization can be really bad. just like you said, I think storytelling can like make a video worse if you don't do it right. Which is why you have to learn, like you said.
You came away with the story. Like your change was that you came away with the memory in a way.
Yeah.
Like that's almost a change because like Pixar movies only come out every now and then and they have some deep message, but there's only a limited set of insanely deep messages that you can implement. And if you're making a video every week, at some point you're just drawing out of a bank that's just dry. So it's kind of beautiful because at some point you just came with an awesome story, like an awesome memory.
By simply you having that experience and just being ever so slightly happier of a person, and that you've generated a nice core memory at the end, that's already the change.
It's very liberating. I think that has to be the caveat too when we're like talking about this new, hopefully revolution of storytelling. Is like the caveat of like don't force emotional transformation.
Yes.
Because that comes across as inauthentic. And I think that we just crave authenticity and realism. And like, I think that's what we're moving towards.
We discovered that spectacle can get the click, and so we all went 100% on spectacle. And then we hyper-focused on those, and we started learning a lot of lessons on getting that spectacle click. But now that I would say we're potentially beginning to exhaust that method, we're now going into storytelling. But what is now happening is because we're learning to do storytelling while already knowing how to do high spectacle, we've got all the skills in spectacle, but not enough skills in storytelling. And so we then do things like forcing an emotional change in the voiceover, and we end up doing bullshit storytelling.
Yep.
And so we have this very frustrating skill gap where we're trying to justify the spectacle in story, but we can't quite get it because we simply don't know how to do it well yet.
Forcing the emotional transformation in the voiceover, like you can have an emotional transformation that isn't verbally stated. Like, now I healed from my childhood traumas in this experience. And you could just like have a facial expression that shows thoughtfulness. And if that really happened, like the silence is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it like hits different for the viewer rather than, hey, you guys are 5 years old. Here's exactly what I'm feeling in this moment. And like saying it over voiceover feels very cheap too, I think. Like, all right, guys, I don't know. This is an afterthought for me to force this storyline.
I feel like that's the destructive nature of voiceover in a lot of ways because the audiences are really smart, you know, like they're watching the video as well. So it's like kind of a show don't tell. But like when you voiceover, a lot of times what naturally comes to mind is like the most obvious possible thing. And you're just feeding them obvious things. And so your brain isn't doing any processing to realize what this story is like actually trying to tell you. And so like allowing the story to tell you the message instead of telling the viewer the message is sometimes really valuable.
What you're trying to do is you're, to an extent, respecting audiences or respecting their intelligence by giving them the implication of change rather than playing to the bottom of their intelligence, telling them the change. The implication is actually, to an extent, a lot more satisfying for the viewer.
Yeah.
And I actually think my favorite endings of movies are the ones where I don't fully know what just happened. And like I'm like having to process it myself. And that's why we were super inspired on this metaverse video we made. Like if you watch the ending, it's just like, that meant something. What the heck did that mean? And I think that those are my favorite types of endings, and that's what we went for with that one. And there's like, I think, yeah, Hayden, you got it. Like you nailed it down, but I think a lot of people just felt something. And I think that even in itself is much more important than learning something from a video.
One thing that I'm really curious to ask you about, Ryan, is redemptive content. Just tell us a little about what that means, and I just want to hear more about your vision with your small team and trying to create stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, my favorite thing to talk about. It's so crazy. Like basically we started off this year, I just wanted some sort of motto. We're like having a team meeting in January. Like what could our motto for the year be? We discovered this thing called Redemptive Work, and essentially it just this chart outlined everything that I felt about YouTube, even just like general capitalism and how typically the goal is to exploit others to benefit from them. To like, let's just do whatever it takes. Let's just win. Let's win by force. There will be people that lose, but we need to be the victors. We need to make money, and anything that stands in our way is going to die.
Yeah.
And that's the reality, dude. Like, I felt like I saw that on YouTube even. You see people that are posting videos that clearly are not something that they're passionate about. Like, you're seeing people that are just copying other people's videos, crapping out whatever video they can and like putting a good enough packaging on it and getting tons of views and like making tons of money. And the audience doesn't feel rejuvenated by that content. They don't feel like inspired by that content. And so what redemptive work is, it basically flips everything on its head. It says, instead of trying to toil for rewards, toil for profit. We're going to create for restoration. Instead of exhausting ourselves to just make an extra buck, we are going to creatively instill in this project as much as we can so that whoever receives it as a gift and is rejuvenated by it. And that has totally changed everything because, dude, it's crazy that I don't think the outcome has been better. The more that we've gone away from striving, the more success we've seen.
Yeah.
And the more that we've been able to pour into the videos creatively to give a gift to people, the more views that we're seeing. And I think it's because it is received as a gift. That's it. Because you don't just give someone a crummy gift because you want them to love it. You want them to like enjoy it and receive it well, and you don't need anything back from them. And so it's been crazy. It's been working, and we just had a new team meeting for like our next season of content. Looking back on the old slideshow, and I was like, we did it. It was so
crazy.
cool.
It's one of the craziest things. I feel like it shifted me into being like an artist because I feel like throughout my life I've always just like done things with the end result being like financial gain, status gain, whatever it is. But when we shifted the mindset to just giving the viewers and the people that receive this a gift, it really allowed me to think of it as like an art and like not rushing through it to get done, but rather like just working on it because I love it and it's so great. And like it allowed me to like just actually take time and like become an artist and like study films and like watch films with like a different like eye. And it actually just gave me such a rejuvenation even to me. Like the product is rejuvenating to me as well, and it allows work to be more valuable when you're like, I don't want the end result. Like the end result is just a byproduct, but like more so I'm in it for the experience. It's like enjoying the journey, not the destination.
I think the biggest thing I've also realized though, that it's kind of like a caveat to redemptive work, is like I've realized what I'm personally passionate about isn't necessarily just creating art, but it's like creating art with strategy. And I think that that's kind of like the asterisk to redemptive work is like part of redemptive work is giving a gift that people will enjoy. And I think that part of that is like for on YouTube, in terms of YouTube's perspective, is like having good packaging, creating a video with a topic that is interesting to people. Just like if your best friend loves turtles and you want to give them a gift, you probably have to give them a gift relating to turtles, not just like some like oil rigs. I don't know. But it's crazy because like creating art with strategy is different from just creating art for it, almost selfishly. And so the whole point of redemptive work is to not be selfish with what you create. And so that's why we're still able to kind of create like broadly appealing content. I think is like why we're still thinking about the masses in that way.
With the experiences you have with the series and experiences you've had with your change in attitude in content, how is that now informing the content you're wanting to make in the future? And how would you hope this attitude is also going to influence the YouTube culture overall?
This Penny series was made because of the redemptive framework. We made it because we wanted to make YouTube feel alive, and we wanted YouTube to feel like a place that people are excited to go to, and we wanted to raise money for charity. And that was the product. It wasn't like, let's make a daily series, it'll get tons of monthly views. We basically are applying that same thing with what we're going to do next. And that's why we're going to be taking breaks after what we're calling like seasons or cycles. We're going to be taking like at least 45, 60 days off after each one, so we can ask ourselves, what do we want to do next out of love? So we're not just forcing ourselves into creating something that is purely for profit or momentum. And it's really cool. So basically moving forward, we decided we're going to try to post once a week for 12 weeks. And that's because posting twice a month felt very slow. Like we didn't have a connection with the audience, but we also realized how much we love to create, sort of like spectacle videos in a sense. And so we're trying to fuse the two where we're much more like accessible to our audience, or like, hey, we're posting once a week no matter what, which means that we're not going to be perfectionists about these videos. We're trying our best on them, but we will be there for you this time every week, and you will be able to like have a video that you get to enjoy and you can look forward to it. You can trust that we're going to be there. And the ideas are much more, there's some funny ones in there, but it still is like, operating within a conceptual realm. Like they're still structured titles. They're not like Emma Chamberlain titles, which I'm trying to do something like that on my second channel where it's just like much more relatable, like whatever, just I think of filming. But yeah, it's cool. Like we're trying to fuse like spectacle with what the Penny series was, which was just real. And so it's going to be a fun experience, and challenging, but there's a finish line and a break. So that's why we get to go as hard as we can.
I know that YouTubers for the longest time have been trying to solve the problem of how do we not burn out and how do we continue to, make amazing content that the audience can look forward to. And I think it's really funny that it seems like you guys are honestly adapting more so the traditional media way of looking at things, where there's seasons where, you know, we take a break, we're planning something. There's always something to look forward to for the audience.
This is what's crazy about this whole thing too, because last year, 2021, I posted 33 videos on my channel, and I didn't take any breaks. 33 videos. Good job, Brian. But this year, in 2022, we probably will have filmed for like 7-8 months out of the year, and we're posting 56 videos this year. Insane. Almost double the output with like 5 months off. So I think that there's a realization of like, what is the best way to give the audience this many videos? And it's crazy because like next year we'll have 6 months where we're not actually filming. Obviously, there's a lot of strategy that goes in those 6 months, like recovering, thinking of ideas, like what are we gonna do next? But realizing that we can actually give them more videos while resting is kind of a crazy realization.
Insane. Yeah, it's super valuable because it allows us to like shift the entire way that we think. Like a lot of the ideas that we come up with like won't be used in the next season because it's just like not the thing that we are inspired by or inspired to do. Like at the beginning of this year, we had the entire year pretty much planned out. We had like almost every video charted, and this was like, this is the roster.
Dang.
Yeah.
And by halfway through the year, once we did the Penny series, it's like all those ideas are relevant now, like in our current thinking, because we've just come so far and evolved so much. And it's so beautiful to be able to segment the year.
I would like to describe your channel as, I would say, the healthiest channel on YouTube.
That's so funny.
Forget all of those like healthy diets or how to get fit. No, like this is, for me, mental health happiness. And I think you got that very comfortable, very low stakes attitude towards this, rather than putting the pressure on yourselves. You're allowing yourselves to do what you would like to do, what you love, what makes you happy. And then that attitude transcends through the video, and we feel that as well.
That's so nice, dude. Thank you so much for saying that.
Just because I love talking about the redemptive work conversation too, how does that fit in with, I mean, your faith in general, and how you guys have wanted to approach YouTube and, you know, be a light in that space, but also not be so upfront about it?
The redemptive framework, it's not a religious framework. It comes from Prague University, but they did a redemptive work dinner at church. Because like a lot of people at church like do jobs that are not like religious jobs, you know? And it's like, can I still be redemptive in my workplace even if, you know, I'm just like an accountant? And so it's really cool. That framework is like really applicable to like everyone. It doesn't matter what job you do. It's like you could just be like a blue collar worker and still find ways to like try to do something restorative with your day, even if it's like to a person that you work with. And so it's really cool because I think that it really does feel like the motivation is different. And for me, I just like to talk about like spiritual things with creators, because I think a lot of creators are chasing money. They're chasing like status. They're chasing fame. And they're like, why is this not filling me up? Why is this
why
like,
am I empty?
Why am I lonely and sad? And so it's cool because the redemptive framework is like actually telling the world, like, I'm already full. Like, you don't have to fill me up. Like, this is merely a gift to you. And I think that that's what's so liberating. And like, that's what plays into my faith is like, I already feel fully loved and fully chosen and validated. And so like, I can go out without needing to be validated by the audience. Not meaning I don't appreciate feedback, but just like, I feel so loved, so I'm going to love you guys with this video.
You have no idea how much I relate to this, because that's a similar journey that I have been on for the past couple of years. I had that what am I doing moment here, and then I went through the journey of like, what is it I actually want to do rather than what I would say capitalist society has told me to do.
The way that we're just trained in America as capitalists to just, you know, try to worry about money, worry about how much can I get and how much can I keep and how can I spend all that on the big house and car and, you know, figure all that stuff out, and then get there and realize, okay, why did I do that? Like, I'm so unhappy here at the top, you know? And so I think the way that you guys have been able to say, okay, how can we make content not only for ourselves, not only for our own personal gain, make it that it's so genuine, so authentic, and, you know, actually make the world a better place because of it is so insane, so insanely cool. And I just want you guys to hear that. Like, it really, really makes a big, big difference. And I also really like the fact that your descriptions are so minimalistic. You're not attaching your socials on anything. You're not saying, hey, go follow me. You're not asking for anything. And that's what I think the big difference between this is a normal YouTuber and this is somebody who's trying to do redemptive work well.
The short descriptions, it really is an extension of it, I think, of just realizing like, we really don't have many goals that benefit us at this point. You know, like we want to continue like operating the channel in a way that allows it to grow because we have families we need to take care of, and obviously like Preston's got a baby, bless his heart, man.
let's
Like,
go, Preston.
I mean, we want to be strategic, right? Isn't that so amazing? Like we want to be strategic in that sense, but it totally is the reality of like we want people to feel like this is okay. He uploaded this and he literally doesn't care what we think of it. Not in a bad way, but like I truly feel like whenever we pre-validate the videos, knowing that we made it with love and knowing that it's a gift, we can't be affected if someone doesn't like it, because if they don't like it, they just haven't received the gift that we made for them, and it doesn't say anything about us. It doesn't say anything that we made it with less love. It just means that wasn't for them. And so it's really cool because it also protects us from our heart being affected by negative feedback or like if people don't like it and stuff.
You're gaining the finances to be able to do what you love, and you don't feel the need or obligation to keep on growing because you now can do what is it that you want.
Obviously, I recognize we're super blessed in regard of like the channel is doing really well, and there's tons of times where I'm like, I don't understand this, you know? Like the penny, truly, guys, I would have dreamed of a 1 million view average on that penny series and been so happy. So the outcome is crazy, but I think it's a byproduct of the intention and people like gravitating towards the intention of just making something out of love. And so it's super crazy, but it even gives you leverage with brand deals and stuff. Like if you know that you don't need this extra money to make the video happen, which is a product of us staying lean. It's a product of us like trying not to make unrelatable videos that cost $100,000. Like if we're able to do that, then we can also tell brands like, hey, this isn't the right fit for us. We're just going to make this video unsponsored and it'll be fine. And I think that that's another aspect of like the redemptive framework is like, it's a long-term play, but it also gives you leverage if you're not greedy with finances.
You say no to brands. That is unheard of in that sense. It's like, this does not contribute to what I love, so thank you and goodbye.
Living redemptively, I guess, like implementing that like throughout the work that we do also impacts like the way that we operate, because when you're making videos out of love instead of just like to get money or to get views, then like your posture towards it changes. So like it becomes more fun to record it. It's not like we need to record this as fast as possible and get the most out of it. Like a lot of our plans this year are like including travel time, like enjoying the journey in a lot of ways. And so it kind of like percolates into all aspects of the way that we live and create. So like it's a much larger holistic mindset shift, I think, that just like impacts the content positively.
I think the ability to just wake up and just enjoy the day and say, okay, I already have everything I need. There's literally nothing else I could ever ask for in the world. And that would make me feel better.
Yeah.
Like I am literally there. I've arrived.
Dude, yeah.
Even when it comes down to the way that you treat social media and the way that, like I said in descriptions, where you're literally not asking for anything, because you could receive payment in so many different ways that are kind of disguised. Whereas like you have a sponsor, or, you know, I'm getting subscribers or I'm getting followers. There's so many different ways other than money to receive payment, to ask for something, and to even reject those makes you stand out so much more.
It's pretty savage, man. It's beautiful though. It really is. I think just thinking about the idea of being content is like so liberating.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because the most successful people in the world, you go probably read an autobiography. It's like, never be satisfied.
Right.
And like, never stop striving. Let's get this bread. And it's really crazy because like, dude, the world tells you work harder, make more money. And we've realized like, as soon as we were able to say like, no, I'm satisfied. We're content with where we're at. And everything else is just a cherry on top. Obviously, it's a privilege to be there, but I've also read a lot of just like stories of people like at their lowest moments, like finding contentment at their lowest moments is so liberating. And so I sort of like to be able to read and learn from others who are not as privileged as me and still have that mindset. And it's like, wow, that is beautiful. It's so liberating. And I would love to try to apply that in my life too.
With the Penny series being, well, literally a series, do you think this is actually opening the door for other creators to try series themselves? And if they were to try it, what experiences did you have that you would like them to know now?
Series have been around forever. Daily vlogging was successful. There's so many ways to do YouTube. And I think that we just put ourselves in a box so often. Like we look around, like what is YouTube like right now? And we see that people are posting once a month these videos that cost tons of money and they all have the same type of thumbnail visually. And I think that you can still be strategic without following whatever the meta is right now. And I think that just looking back on the history of YouTube is really fun. Because, like, dude, we loved Casey Neistat whenever he was
100%.
posting. And it was so magical. And it's like, dang, that doesn't exist right now. What do we posted daily? And then also at the same time, I can respect and acknowledge that Mr. Beast is killing it with amazing packaging. And I can say, like, okay, what if we did daily videos, but then like had an emphasis on packaging and had a concept that is like just nationally exciting, you know, like it's really fun to look at everything and being like, I want to create something that's really special and strategic, but also I'm excited about. So with daily series, it's really just one example of what you could do with your imagination. I don't think it's like the next meta or like the next genius thing to do, because I was just looking in the past anyway. And so, you know, like look around and don't put yourself in a box and allow yourself to get passionate about a project. And that's really probably going to be your best work.
You looked at a content trend, which was daily vlogging, and you look at a content trend now, which is really spectacle and amazing packaging. And you went, I wonder what happens if I put those two trends together. And then that's what your content then created. But by doing that, you, to an extent, stumbled upon what would people describe as a new format, but it was simply because you wanted to challenge the idea of a format.
Yeah.
And so for me, that the reason why I'm very grateful for the series is that to an extent, you just gave creators permission to try something new.
Yes.
If you open your homepage up on a Friday, everyone uploads, you can almost guess exactly what it's going to be right now. And I get the most excited when I see a video that is unpredictable. And I'm like, oh, that is like not maybe the most spectacle idea on my homepage right now, but that is different. And I really think we're in an era right now where different is better than good, for sure.
Unpredictable is the new meta.
I know it is. This doesn't even feel like work at all. That's what I'm talking about. I just love this. Like, we just chat. This is how we chat with each other. So being able to share this with you guys who are like so smart on the world of editing and storytelling is a privilege, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't even realize we started. I was like, oh. Yeah. I was like, are we just having a conversation right now, or are we podcasting? Like, I was like, I can't really figure it out, but I like whatever's happening.
I like this.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity for her to share this conversation as well. So I appreciate that.
So fun. This is
So
our first
fun.
podcast together. It's kind of cute.